Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something a little darker. Journey through history's most infamous crime stories. These aren't your average mysteries. They're tales of murder, mayhem, and unsolved enigmas. We're talking about a world where the fog hides killers, where cryptic letters taunt the living, and where empty frames whisper of stolen treasures. This video's going to be a long one, so close your eyes, settle in. Before we start, hit that like button if you're excited. Subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing who's joining us today from across the globe. Ready? Let's step into the shadows together. It's late August, 1888, and you're in Whitechapel, East London. The air is thick with fog, curling around gas lamps that cast a sickly yellow glow on the cobblestones. The streets smell like a mix of coal smoke, rotting vegetables, and the sharp, coppery tang of blood from nearby slaughterhouses. You're hurrying home after a 12-hour shift at a match factory, your fingers raw, your stomach empty. The alleys are narrow, twisting like a drunkard's path, lined with crumbling tenements where families of 8 cram into single rooms. You hear the clatter of carts, the slurred shouts of drunks spilling out of pubs, and the soft, desperate whispers of women offering themselves for a few pennies, just enough for a bed or a glass of gin to dull the cold. You've seen the newspapers, tattered copies passed around at the factory. They talk of a killer, a phantom who strikes in the night, leaving women gutted like fish. You pull your shawl tighter, your boots slipping on the slick stones, and you pray the shadows don't move. This is the world Jack the Ripper turned into a living nightmare. Whitechapel wasn't just a place, it was a pressure cooker of misery. Over 100,000 people packed into a square mile of slums, where poverty wasn't a condition, it was a sentence. Immigrants from Ireland, Eastern Europe, and beyond fought for scraps, living in buildings so rotten the walls wept damp. Disease was a constant: cholera, tuberculosis, diphtheria killing as surely as any blade. The police, known as bobbies, was stretched thin, their nightsticks more for show than safety. They'd arrest you for loitering before they'd chase a killer through the maze of alleys. Forensic science, forget it. No fingerprints, no DNA, just a constable's lantern and a whistle. Into this chaos stepped a man who didn't just murder, he made history. His first known victim was Mary Ann Nichols, a 43-year-old mother of 5 who'd fallen hard. Once a wife in a modest home, she'd been worn down by drink and poverty, turning to the streets to survive. On August 31st, just before 4 in the morning, a carter found her in Bucks Row, a dim alley off Whitechapel Road. Her throat was slashed twice, so deep it nearly took her head off. Her skirt was hiked up, her abdomen ripped open, intestines glistening under the gaslight. The cuts were clean, almost surgical, but the savagery was raw. The police covered her quickly, but not before word spread. Whitechapel whispered, something evil was here. 8 days later, on September 8th, Annie Chapman met the same fate. She was 47, a widow scraping by on crochet work and occasional prostitution. At 5:30 in the morning, a neighbor found her in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street, a crumbling house packed with lodgers. Her throat was cut, her body opened from pelvis to chest. Her uterus was gone, removed with a precision that made the coroner pause. The killer had worked fast, in near darkness, with no one hearing a thing. The newspapers exploded to women, same method, same place. Panic began to simmer. Then came September 30th, the night they called the double event. Elizabeth Stride, 44, a Swedish immigrant with a hard luck story, was found just after 1 in the morning in Dutfield's yard. Her throat was slashed, but her body was untouched maybe. The killer was interrupted by a passing cart. Less than an hour later, 2 streets away in Mitre Square, Catherine Eddowes, 46, was discovered by a constable. Her throat was cut, her face mutilated with slashes across her cheeks and nose. Her abdomen was torn open, her left kidney and uterus taken. The cuts were deliberate, almost artistic, as if the killer was signing his work. Eddowes had been in police custody for drunkenness just hours before, released at 12:30. In under an hour, she was dead. The city reeled to murders in one night, bold as brass. Finally, on November 9th, the Ripper's masterpiece, Mary Jane Kelly. She was young, just 25, an Irish woman with a pretty face and a voice for singing. She had a room of her own on Dorset Street, a rare luxury in Whitechapel. At 10:45 that morning, her landlord's assistant knocked for rent and found horror instead. Kelly's body lay on her bed, disemboweled, her heart missing, her face hacked beyond recognition. The walls were spattered with blood, the mattress soaked through. Unlike the others, killed in the open, Kelly's murder was private, intimate, as if the killer savored every moment. The police sealed the room, but the image burned into Whitechapel's soul. These 5 nickels, Chapman Stride, Kelly are the canonical victims, though some argue for more. Each was a woman, poor, often drunk, always vulnerable. Each died in the open or near it, except Kelly. Each bore the same marks, a slashed throat, abdominal mutilation, and a killer who vanished like smoke. The Metropolitan Police were drowning. Chief Inspector Frederick Aberline, a wiry man with a knack for the East End's underbelly, led the hunt. He knew Whitechapel's pubs and pimps, but this was different. The killer left no footprints, no witnesses who'd talk. The alleys were too dark, the crowds too thick. Aberline's men patrolled endlessly, but it was like chasing a ghost. Then came the letters, hundreds of them, flooding Scotland Yard and newspapers. On September 27th, one arrived at the Central News Agency, written in red ink. "Dear Boss," it began, promising more murders and signing off as Jack the Ripper. It was the first time the name appeared, and it stuck like tar. On October 16th, another letter, dubbed from hell, arrived at a vigilance committee with half a human kidney. "I send you the kidney I took from one woman," it read, claiming the other half was fried and eaten. Was it Eddowes' kidney? A prank. Tests were inconclusive, but the fear was real. The police chased every lead. Suspects piled up. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jew with mental illness and a hatred for women. Montague Druitt, a barrister who drowned himself in the Thames after Kelly's murder. George Chapman, a poisoner hanged years later. Some whispered of a royal conspiracy prince, Albert Victor, Queen Victoria's grandson, tied to a wild tale of secret marriages and syphilis-fueled madness. Others suggested Jill the Ripper, a midwife who could slip through blood-soaked streets unnoticed. The evidence was flimsy, the theories endless. Kosminski's erratic behavior made him a favorite, but he was never charged. Druitt's suicide seemed convenient, but proof was thin. The royal story was pure fiction, yet it persists. The truth. Maybe he was a nobody, a butcher, a sailor who knew Whitechapel's veins and bled them dry. The murders stopped after Kelly, as suddenly as they'd begun. Why was he dead? Locked up for another crime? Or did he simply tire of the game? Whitechapel held its breath, waiting for the next body that never came. The police kept hunting, but the trail went cold. The Ripper didn't just kill, he rewrote London. Newspapers sold millions, printing lurid details and sketches of the crime scenes. Vigilance committees, armed with clubs, patrolled the streets, their lanterns bobbing like fireflies. Women stayed indoors, men eyed strangers with suspicion. Whitechapel became a name, a synonym for terror, its alleys a stage for a killer's opera. The impact rippled beyond 1888. The Ripper was the first modern serial killer, his crimes a blueprint. For every slasher story since, he exposed the rot of Victorian society, its neglect of the poor, its brutal class divides. Reformers pointed to Whitechapel's slums, demanding change, though it came slowly. The police learned, too, adopting better methods, though too late for Nichols or Kelly. Today, you can walk those streets on Jack the Ripper tours, past the 10 Bells pub where victims drank, past Hanbury Street's ghosts. The cobblestones are still there, the fog still rolls in, but the fear is a memory. Books, films, TV shows, even video games keep the Ripper alive, a shadow who never ages. He's in Sherlock Holmes stories, in From Hell with Johnny Depp, in countless documentaries. Amateur sleuths pore over case files, DNA tests on old shawls spark headlines, but the answer stays out of reach. Why does he fascinate us? Because he's a void, a question mark in human form. We know his work, but not his face. He's the monster who got away, the puzzle we can't solve. In 1888, Whitechapel was a place where hope went to die, and the Ripper was its executioner. His victims were women who fought to live, who laughed and cried and dreamed, even in the slums. Their deaths weren't just crimes, they were thefts of stories, of futures. Mary Ann Nichols wanted to see her children again. Annie Chapman sold flowers to feel human. Elizabeth Stride dreamed of Sweden. Catherine Eddowes sang in the drunk tank. Mary Jane Kelly planned to leave Dorset Street. They were more than bodies, more than headlines. The Ripper took their lives, but history gave them names. And yet, the question lingers. Who was he? A doctor with a scalpel? A madman with a grudge? Or just a man who saw Whitechapel's women as prey? We'll never know. That's the horror of Jack the Ripper, not the blood, but the silence. He struck, he vanished, and he left us looking over our shoulders, wondering if the shadows are empty. Now we are moving to the next story. It's 1969, and you're in Northern California, where the sun sets over golden hills, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The radio crackles with the electric strum of Jimi Hendrix, the soulful croon of Janis Joplin, and the defiant beat of Jefferson Airplane. You're driving down a quiet road, maybe headed to a lover's lane by a lake, where the world feels soft and private. The air smells of eucalyptus and sea salt, and the breeze carries the faint hum of a world-changing hippies preaching love in San Francisco. Students protesting the Vietnam War, and a generation chasing freedom. But tonight, something's off. The shadows seem darker, the silence heavier. You don't know it yet, but a man is watching. He's got a gun, a knife, and a mind twisted into riddles. He calls himself the Zodiac, and he's about to turn this paradise into a puzzle of paranoia. A nightmare written in blood and ink. This is the story of the Zodiac Killer. A phantom who didn't just take lives, he took peace, leaving behind a mystery that still haunts us. Northern California in the late 1960s was a land of contrasts, a place where dreams collided with dread. San Francisco was the heart of the counterculture, with Haight-Ashbury's flower children dancing to visions of peace. But just a year earlier, the Manson family had butchered Sharon Tate and others, staining the summer of love with blood. The Vietnam War raged overseas, its images flashing on TV screens, napalm body bags, and protests that turned cities into battlegrounds. Berkeley's students clashed with police, chanting for revolution, while the Black Panthers armed themselves. In Oakland, fear was creeping in, a shadow beneath the tie-dye and incense. The Zodiac slipped into this unease, a predator who didn't need a cult or a cause, just a gun and a game. He chose lovers' lanes, those secluded spots where young couples parked, under the stars, stealing kisses and dreaming of forever. These were places of trust, of escape, but the Zodiac made them traps. His crimes weren't just murders. They were performances, each one a move in a chess match against the world. His first known strike came on December 20th, 1968, on Lake Herman Road, a lonely stretch near Vallejo. Betty Lou Jensen, just 16, was a high school junior with a shy smile and a love for cheerleading. She'd grown up in a working-class family, her father a mechanic, her mother a homemaker. That night, she was on her first date with David Faraday, 17, a senior with dreams of college and a knack for fixing cars. They'd told their parents they were going to a Christmas concert, but instead, they parked David's Rambler station wagon by the lake, the radio playing softly. It was just after 11 when another car pulled up. The details are murky, no witnesses, just the aftermath. Shots rang out, shattering the Rambler's windows. David was hit in the head, dying instantly. His body slumped against the door. Betty Lou bolted, running for the road, but bullets caught her in the back, 5 shots tearing through her. She collapsed 10 feet from the car, her dress stained red. Police found them at 11:20, the scene lit by their headlights. Shell casings littered the ground, .22 caliber, from a semi-automatic pistol. There were no signs of robbery or assault, just death. Vallejo was a blue-collar town, unused to such violence. The community mourned, but the killer was already gone, a ghost in the night. 7 months later, on July 4th, 1969, he struck again, this time in Blue Rock Springs Park, another lover's lane just 2 miles from the first. Darlene Ferrin, 22, was a vivacious waitress at a local diner, known for her bright laugh and quick wit. She was married but estranged, with a young daughter she adored. That night, she was with Michael Mago, 19, a lanky kid who worked odd jobs and had a crush on Darlene. They parked her Corvair near midnight, talking under the glow of a dashboard light. Around 12, a car, a brown Falcon, Mago later recalled, pulled up beside them. A man with a flashlight approached, his silhouette bulky, maybe 5'8". Without a word, he fired. The 9mm bullets tore through the car, hitting Darlene in the arms and chest, Michael in the jaw, neck, and legs. The man walked away, then turned back, firing again. Darlene was hit 9 times, Michael 5. She died at the hospital. Michael survived, his jaw shattered. His words slurred, but clear enough to describe the attacker. Stocky, short brown hair. No glasses. At 12:40, a man called Vallejo police from a payphone, his voice calm, almost mechanical. "I want to report a double murder," he said. "If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you will find kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year. Goodbye." The call was traced to a gas station, but he was gone. The link to Lake Herman Road was chilling, a killer, claiming both, taunting the cops with details only he'd. No, the Zodiac's third attack was his boldest. A daylight assault on September 27, 1969, at Lake Berryessa, a scenic reservoir in Napa County. Brian Hartnell, 20, was a pre-law student at Pacific Union College, a quiet kid with a steady girlfriend. Cecilia Shepard, 22, was a music major, her gentle demeanor hiding a fierce intelligence. They were friends, maybe more, spending the day picnicking on a peninsula by the lake. It was late afternoon, the sun glinting off the water, when they noticed a man watching from the trees. He was heavy-set, wearing a dark jacket. He disappeared, then returned, transformed. Now he wore a black hood, square at the top, like an executioner's, with a white crosshair symbol on the chest. Sunglasses covered his eyes, and a gun hung at his hip, a knife sheathed beside it. "I'm an escaped convict," he lied, his voice steady. He demanded their money and keys, then ordered them to lie face down. Using pre-cut plastic cord, he tied their wrists. Brian tried to talk, offering help, but the man knelt and stabbed him 6 times in the back, each thrust deliberate. Cecilia screamed as the knife turned on her, 10 wounds tearing through her back and chest. The attacker walked away, stopping to scroll a message on Brian's car door with a marker Vallejo. 12 menos 2, 0 menos 68. 7 menos 4 menos 69. September 27th to 69, 6:30, by knife. He called Napa police from a payphone, claiming the murder, his voice slurred, maybe drunk. "I'm the one who did it," he said, hanging up. A fisherman found Brian and Cecilia, both alive, but bleeding out. Brian survived, his scars a lifelong reminder. Cecilia died 2 days later, her last words a plea for help. The hood, the symbol, the message, it was theatrical. A killer staging his own myth. The final confirmed attack came on October 11th, 1969, in San Francisco's Presidio Heights, a wealthy neighborhood far from lovers' lanes. Paul Stein, 29, was a cab driver, a doctoral student at San Francisco State, working nights to pay bills. He was a family man, married, with a quick smile and a love for history. At 9:55, he picked up a fare at Union Square, a man who directed him to Maple and Washington streets. As Stein stopped, the passenger shot him once in the head with a 9mm pistol. He tore a piece of Stein's shirt, blood-soaked, and fled on foot. 3 teenagers across the street saw it, describing a white man, 35 to 45, 5'11", 200 pounds, wearing glasses. Police arrived minutes later, but a dispatcher error sent them after a black suspect, letting the killer slip away. Stein's murder was different, professional, no romance, but the Zodiac claimed it. Proving his reach, the Zodiac's real weapon wasn't his gun or knife, it was his words. On August 1st, 1969, 3 newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco Examiner, and Vallejo Times-Herald, received nearly identical letters. "Dear editor," they began, "I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl on the 4th of July. Each included a cipher, 408 symbols divided into 3 parts, with a promise, solve it and you'll know my identity." The letters described the murders in chilling detail, munition types, body positions proving the writer's guilt. A week later, another letter arrived, beginning, "This is the Zodiac speaking," the first use of the name. It mocked the police, bragged of killing for fun, and claimed the cipher solution would reveal him. A schoolteacher, Donald Harden, and his wife Betty cracked the 408 cipher in days. The message was disjointed, misspelled, but terrifying. I like killing people because it is so much fun. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collecting of slaves for my afterlife. No identity, just a glimpse into a warped mind. On October 14th, after Stein's murder, the Chronicle received another letter with a piece of Stein's shirt. This is the Zodiac speaking. It read, threatening to kill schoolchildren next. A new cipher, 340. Symbols came with it still unsolved decades later. Over 20 letters followed, some claiming 37 victims, though police confirmed 7. Jensen, Faraday, Farron, Shepard, Stein dead, Magot and Hartnell survived. Each letter was a performance, written in a scrawl with deliberate errors, taunting the world to catch him. The investigation was a labyrinth of frustration. Vallejo, Napa, and San Francisco police worked separately, their rivalries costing time. Detectives Dave Toschi and Bill Armstrong in San Francisco led the hunt. Toschi, a sharp-dressed cop with a knack for publicity. They chased hundreds of tips, from psychics to scorned exes. Arthur Lee Allen, a Vallejo teacher, became the prime suspect. He was 36, stocky, with a history of disturbing behavior, allegations of molesting children, a fascination with hunting. He owned a Zodiac watch, its crosshair logo eerily similar to the killer's symbol. Witnesses placed him near crime scenes. Magot picked him from a lineup years later. Allen's trailer held bloody knives, but no direct evidence. Searched repeatedly, he stayed free, dying in 1992. Other suspects included Ross Sullivan, a librarian with a cryptic past, and Rick Marshall, a radio operator linked to ciphers. None stuck. A composite sketch from Stein's murder, white male. Crew cut, glasses-fueled manhunts, but the Zodiac was a chameleon. Fingerprints from Stein's cab and a palm print from a letter didn't match Allen or anyone else. The case grew cold, but the obsession didn't. The 1960s backdrop shaped the Zodiac's terror. California was a crucible Woodstock's echoes, clashed with Altamont's violence, where a Rolling Stones concert ended in murder. The counterculture promised utopia, but drugs and disillusionment soured it. The Zodiac fed on this, his letters a dark mirror to the era's chaos. He wasn't political, but his crimes felt like a rebuke to the peace and love dream. The media amplified him, printing his ciphers on front pages, turning him into a celebrity. The Chronicle's Herb Can called him a modern boogeyman, his letters read like scripts for a horror film. Public fear shifted, parents locked doors, lovers' lanes emptied. The Zodiac didn't just kill, he rewrote how we see safety. The Zodiac stopped writing in 1974, or so it seems. A 1978 letter surfaced, but some call it a hoax. His silence deepened the mystery. Was he dead, jailed, or laughing from the shadows? The case's legacy is vast. The 2007 film Zodiac, with Jake Gyllenhaal, captured the obsession, grossing $84 million. Books like Robert Graysmith's Zodiac became Bibles for sleuths. In 2020, codebreakers solved the 340 cipher, revealing a rant about not fearing the gas chamber, no name, just defiance. Online forums buzz with theories, from DNA hopes to wild claims of CIA links. The Zodiac's shadow looms over true crime, inspiring shows like Mindhunter and podcasts like Casefile. He wasn't the first serial killer, but he was the first to play the media, to make murder a spectacle. His ciphers are puzzles we can't resist, his anonymity a challenge we can't ignore. The victims were more than names. Betty Lou Jensen wanted to be a nurse. David Faraday planned to propose. Darlene Ferrin dreamed of opening a restaurant. Cecilia Shepard loved Chopin. Paul Stein was writing a thesis on medieval literature. Brian Hartnell became a lawyer, haunted by that day. Michael Mageau battled pain and fear for years. Their stories were stolen, but their faces endure. The Zodiac didn't just kill, he mocked justice, turning his crimes into a game where he wrote the rules. Who was he? A loner like Alan? A braggart inflating his count? Or a shadow who walked away? We may never know. That's the Zodiac. Power, not the bodies, but the question is out there, in the ciphers, in the fear, in the dark. Now we are moving to the next story. It's January 1947, and you're in Los Angeles, the city of dreams. The sun burns bright, glinting off the chrome of Cadillacs cruising down Sunset Boulevard. Palm trees sway against a sky so blue it hurts, and neon signs flicker to life. As dusk settles, promising fame, fortune, and a ticket to the stars. Hollywood's in its golden age. Bogart and Bacall smolder on screen. Studios churn out noir thrillers, and every waitress, cab driver, and drifter believes their one audition. From greatness, but beneath the glamour lies a shadow. The air smells of orange blossoms, cigarette smoke, and something sour. Corruption, maybe, or despair. You're walking through a quiet neighborhood in Leimert Park, past tidy bungalows and vacant lots, where weeds choke the earth. It's early morning, the city still waking, when you see something in the grass. At first, you think it's a mannequin, broken and discarded. Then you look closer, and your breath catches. It's a woman, cut in half, her face slashed into a grotesque smile. This is Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, and her murder is about to become Hollywood's darkest secret. A mystery that will haunt the city of angels for decades. Los Angeles, in 1947, was a paradox, a place where hope and heartbreak walked hand in hand. World War II had just ended, and the city was booming. Veterans flooded back, chasing jobs in aerospace or a shot at the movies. Hollywood was king, its studios Warner Bros., MGM, Paramount pumping out films that defined the era. Noir was the pulse of the time, with shadows and cynicism dripping from films like Double Indemnity and The Big Sleep. But LA wasn't just spotlights and premieres. It was a city of transients, of dreamers who arrived with a suitcase and left with nothing. Downtown's Skid Row teemed with bars and flop houses where hope went to die. Corruption ran deep. Cops took bribes, politicians played dirty, and the mob had a hand in everything from gambling to starlets. Women like Elizabeth Short came to La with stars in their eyes, but found a city that chewed up the vulnerable and spat them out. Into this world stepped a killer who didn't just take a life, he created a legend. Elizabeth Short was 22, born in Boston in 1924, the third of 5 daughters in a middle-class family. Her father, Cleo, built miniature golf courses until the Depression hit, then vanished, leaving her mother, Phoebe, to raise the girls alone. Elizabeth, called Betty by friends, was a dreamer with dark hair, pale skin, and blue-green eyes that seemed to hold secrets. She loved movies, idolizing Deanna Durbin, and spent hours at the cinema, escaping her troubles. Asthma plagued her childhood, sending her to Miami winters for relief. At 19, she tracked down her father in Vallejo, California. But their reunion soured. He found her lazy, she found him cold. By 1943, she was on her own, working at Camp Cook's PX. a military base where soldiers called her Miss Victory for her charm. She drifted to Santa Barbara, then lay chasing a screen test that never came. Arrested once for underage drinking, she was sent back east, but Lay called her back. She lived in cheap motels, shared apartments, and dated men who promised connections directors, producers, or just guys with a car. She wore black dresses, dahlias in her hair, earning whispers of black dahlia among barflies, a nod to the noir film The Blue Dahlia. Her life was a patchwork of hope and hustle, a girl who wanted to be someone but was running out of time. On January 15th, 1947, at around 10 in the morning, Betty Mae Bersinger was pushing her stroller along Norton Avenue in Leimert Park, a developing neighborhood of empty lots and new homes. She glanced at a weedy patch and froze. There, in the grass, lay a body or half of one. It was a woman, severed at the waist, her upper half posed with arms bent, legs spread. Her face was slashed from mouth to ear, a Glasgow smile that turned her lips into a rictus grin. Her skin was bone white, drained of blood, her body washed clean. The lower half lay a foot away, neatly aligned, as if arranged by an artist. Bersinger ran to a nearby house, calling police. Officers arrived, their faces paling at the sight. The woman's intestines were tucked under her hips, her organs removed with surgical skill. Bruises marked her wrists and ankles, suggesting she'd been bound. The cuts were precise, made with a blade sharper than a butcher's knife. No blood pooled around her. She'd been killed elsewhere, cleaned and dumped. Reporters swarmed, snapping photos before the coroner arrived. By noon, the story was breaking. A young woman, mutilated, left like a broken doll in LA's backyard. The police identified her the next day, thanks to fingerprints from her Santa Barbara arrest. Elizabeth Short, 22, no fixed address. The autopsy was grim. She'd been alive during some of the torture, her stomach empty, her body bearing signs of beating. The cause of death was hemorrhage from the facial slashes, though with a tool like a meat cleaver came post-mortem. The killer had taken days, maybe a week, to mutilate her, keeping her body somewhere private. The crime scene yielded nothing, no footprints, no fibers, just a single heel print in the dirt. The LAPD's Homicide Division, led by Captain Jack Donahoe, threw everything at it. Detectives Harry Hansen and Finis Brown canvassed Leimert Park, but neighbors saw nothing. The press dubbed her the Black Dahlia, a name that stuck like a curse. Newspapers screamed headlines: fiend tortures, hacks girl in half, turning Elizabeth into a noir icon overnight. The investigation was a beast, sprawling and chaotic. Over 500 detectives worked the case, chasing 2,000 tips in the first month. Elizabeth's last known movements were pieced together. She'd been in San Diego in December 1946, staying with a friend, Elvira French. On January 9th, she returned to LA with Robert Red Manley, a 25-year-old salesman who'd picked her up hitchhiking. Manley dropped her at the Biltmore Hotel, where she said she was meeting her sister. She made a call, checked her luggage, and vanished. Her body was found 6 days later, 15 miles south. Manley was grilled but cleared his alibi held, and he passed a polygraph. Police tracked Elizabeth's haunts Hollywood's Pig and Whistle Cafe, the Greyhound station, the Crown Grill Bar. She'd been seen with men, always different ones, but no one stood out. A suitcase and purse, found in a downtown dumpster, held letters and photos but no killer's name. The media didn't help. The LA Examiner paid tipsters, printed fake confessions, and hounded Phoebe Short, Elizabeth's mother, 4 quotes. By February, 60 people had confessed drunks, cranks, fame seekers, but none checked out. Suspects piled up like scripts in a producer's office. Dr. George Hodel, a 39-year-old physician, topped the list. Hodel was brilliant, charming, and darker surgeon with a taste for surrealist art and orgies at his Soden House mansion. His medical skills matched the killer's precision, and his son, Steve Hodel, later claimed he'd found evidence. Photos of Elizabeth in Hodel's album, wiretaps catching him boasting of murder. Hodel fled to Asia in 1950, dodging scrutiny. Walter Bailey, a 67-year-old doctor, was another theory. His office was near the dump site, and his marriage was crumbling. His daughter claimed he'd known Elizabeth, but proof was thin. Leslie Dillon, a 27-year-old bellhop, wrote police with a theory, then became a suspect after bragging in bars. He failed a polygraph, but had an alibi. Mob ties surfaced. LA's underworld, led by Bugsy Siegel, ran drugs and rackets. Was Elizabeth a courier who knew too much? Or did she spurn the wrong man? The theories grew wilder. A cop cover-up, a serial killer passing through, even a link to Cleveland's Torso murders. Evidence was mishandled, fingerprints lost, witnesses ignored. The case drowned in its own weight. Los Angeles in 1947 was a city of masks. Hollywood sold dreams but hid predators casting couches, mobbed up clubs, and cops on the take. Women like Elizabeth were prey, their ambition a vulnerability. The noir aesthetic wasn't just art. It was truth. Shadowy streets, femmes fatales, and men with secrets. The war had changed LA, bringing jobs but also transience, crime, and a housing crunch. Racial tensions simmered. Mexican-American zoot suiters clashed with police in 43. The Black Dahlia case tapped into this unease, a symbol of a city losing its shine. The press fed the frenzy, with reporters like Aggie Underwood crafting Elizabeth as both victim and seductress. Her black dresses, her barroom smiles, became a cautionary tale. Chase fame, and you'll end up dead. The investigation never stopped, but it never solved anything either. By 1949, the LAPD had scaled back, leaving a skeleton crew. Tips trickled. In sightings of Elizabeth's real killer in Chicago, Mexico, even Australia. In 1950, a grand jury blasted the police for incompetence, but no charges came. Hodel remained a ghost, his Soden house a dark monument. Bailey died in 48, his secrets buried. Dillon faded into obscurity. The mob theory fizzled. Siegel was dead by 47, shot in Beverly Hills. The case went cold, but Elizabeth's face didn't. Her morgue photo, leaked to papers, became an icon. Her eyes closed, her wounds hidden, her beauty eternal. She was no longer Betty Short, the girl who loved orange juice and cried at sad movies. She was the Black Dahlia, a myth. The legacy of the Black Dahlia is vast, a mirror to our fascination with tragedy. James Ellroy's 1987 novel, The Black Dahlia wove her into noir fiction, a bestseller that painted LA as a city of lies. The 2006 film, with Scarlett Johansson, flopped but kept her name alive. True crime books severed. Black Dahlia Avenger dissected every angle. Podcasts, like Root of Evil, explored Hodel's family, blending fact and speculation. TV shows, from American Horror Story to I Am the Night, cast Elizabeth as a ghost haunting LA. Her story shaped true crime, proving a single murder could grip the world. The LAPD still gets tips DNA tests on old letters, soil samples from Leimert Park, but the case is a vault, locked tight. In 2013, a cadaver dog hit on a scent in Hodel's basement, but no evidence followed. The truth stays buried, maybe forever. Why does the Black Dahlia endure? She's a symbol of ambition crushed, of a city's hypocrisy, of women lost to violence. Her murder wasn't just a crime, it was a betrayal. Elizabeth came to LA to be a star, but found a stage of predators. She wasn't perfect. She lied about auditions, borrowed money, drifted, but she was human. She wrote letters to her mother, saved for a new dress, hoped for a break. Her death stole that hope, but gave her fame, twisted and eternal. The killer, he's out there, in the shadows of history. Was it Hodel, carving his art, Bailey, hiding in plain sight, or a stranger, gone with the wind? We'll never know. That's the Dahlias, curse not the blood, but the silence. She's Hollywood's ghost, her smile a wound that never heals.